Good morning, everyone. This is John Higday from ITS Partners, and with me today we have Dennis Larson. Today we're going to talk about could 2016 be the year for ransomware? So let's go ahead and get going here. And then, like I said, at the end we'll go ahead and take questions if there's any questions that are out there, and we'll go ahead and take questions at that time. So never before in the history of humankind have people across the world been subject to extortion on a massive scale as they are today. I found that a great quote. I mean, if you think about it, what you see and what you hear today in the world, and of course in the technical field that we're in, ransomware, crypto locker, ransomware, those type of things are becoming very, very relevant in the way that we do business today and how we do business and how we secure up our environments. So it's really important. So when I saw this quote, I thought it really did apply kind of what was going on out in the world and where we needed to go from there. So today's agenda, we want to talk about a brief history on malware. Where did malware come from, where it is, where it's currently going to today, and then we want to talk about threat spotlight, which is what we're going to talk about today, is the ransomware part of that. Semantics response to not only ransomware, but also the response to malware. And then we want to talk a little bit about then Dennis Larson's going to do an ATP demo. And that will go through the process of how you do different things and what you can do in the ATP console, which is Advanced Threat Protection. And then we'll be talking about the ATP readiness as the last part of the agenda. And then, of course, we'll have the questions for the end. So in a brief history of malware, have you ever wondered where something began? So I'm a geek at heart. I mean, be honest, for the people that do know me, I'm a complete geek. So I always like to go all the way back and kind of figure out the history of it, right? So where did it begin? Or how it became that way. So viruses and Trojan horses, worms, and other types of malicious software can be traced back to its origins. About 1949 is when it started out as a theory, or it started out as an idea. The original malware started out as the simple programs that were later. Malware is nothing more than a program that is designed to make your life miserable by causing problems with your computer or stealing information. Originally malware could spread from computers to computers by sharing media such as floppies and tapes and all that type of stuff. Modern malware is designed to leverage bugs and applications that will allow the code to be spread from computer to computer. We know that. Worms, we got mass mailers for email, that type of thing, right? Although not all malware is that sophisticated, a great deal of it relies on human making mistakes and launching programs they should not have. The click, 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 click thing. So we've run into that a lot as being one of the weakest links. So malware is different and more dangerous, almost justifying a new name, because I think many are stuck thinking of malware for what it was, virus, what it's become today, right? So it started as a malware, and now it's a true virus. In the late 1970s and 80s, worms were the flavor. So basically, that's what we were seeing a lot of. We were seeing a lot of different worm type of threats that were out there. Then, of course, the polymorphic type and macros. Wrecking motherboards, destroying BIOS chips. We ran into a lot of that at the beginning. It was more of a destructive nature, if you thought about it, or an intrusion nature also, so where they wanted to see if they could get into systems, and then once they got in, what could they do to those systems, that type of thing. So I always look back at those days as being less financial, less political, more towards destruction. Then in the 1990s, of course, came the mass mailers. We all remember the mass mailers. A lot of bots and implements of mass inconvenience. In other words, just burying people with mass mailers, putting all kinds of stuff out. One of our favorite ones that everybody's talked about, has become, hey, I inherited $30 million, give me $1,000 to get some of that, right? So that type of thing. We still see some of that today, but it has dropped off significantly over this last decade. In about 2006, the other part that was a little bit of a change to us is we got DIY malware kits hit the market, right? Where you can basically build your own, take their program, their simple program that they built, and build your own malware kit. So now it was basically introducing, you buy these kits, and it was basically giving you a way to start spreading malware and spreading threats and searching for vulnerabilities and different things right off the top. And so it gave you an easy way to start doing that instead of building your code from the base. So we started seeing that in 2006. And in 2010, malware was really replicating financial or political motivations. So we noticed this big turn right around 2010. It actually started happening a little bit before that, but we started seeing the change in how malware works and what its end goal is. So its end and how it does that is it's going for the financial pride, it's going for the money, it's going for stealing data that is people's customers, companies, credit card informations, their account informations, the different type of things. And then we give the political motivations that we know North Korea, China, these the Ukraine, different places like that are going forward to cyber attack each other to trade advantages over the other governments. So today's sophisticated criminals, hacktivists, and nation states have replaced the garden variety hacking in the beginning. Precise and targeted maneuvers have been replaced yesterday's attacks that were broad and indiscriminate. Ransomware and phishing are the cause of a lot of the problems. Look where we are today, and what do we do about it? So that's kind of where we're at right now, is what do we do about this? So now I want to talk about a little bit about the threat spotlight. The reason why probably most of you are here is maybe hopefully learn a little bit about ransomware and provide a little bit of information to you. So one of them that's fresh in the news is just to let everybody know this is not the first ransomware that has basically attacked Apple, but it is truly the first fully functional ransomware that has attacked Apple. It's called Key Ranger. It's been in the news. I think it came out Monday. I think it was announced on Monday. So Apple was able to shut down what appears to have been the first fully functional ransomware targeted. It was from a licensed developer. They removed their certificates and their license, so they don't have that capability anymore. So it's not coming that way anymore. But it has proven that what we all thought for a long time is that ransomware and threats and malware are going to attack anything that they can make a profit from, or they can get political standing with, or that type of thing. So it's not a battle between PC, Apple, Linux, and those type of things. It's basically a battle against any OS and what you're having to deal with. We all have to deal with these threats. We all have to make sure we're prepared and we've got the proper layers of protection in place, so we don't have to deal with them, or so we can limit their effect. So there are two basic types of ransomware currently in circulation. The most common types today is crypto ransomware, which aims to encrypt personal data and files. The other is known as locker ransomware, and it's designed to lock the computer, preventing the victims from using it. Locker ransomware, which is computer locker, denies access to the computer or device, as you can kind of see. And then crypto ransomware data locker prevents access to the files or data. Crypto ransomware doesn't necessarily have to use encryption to stop users from accessing their data, but the vast majority of those do. So a little bit about locker ransomware. And this is the computer locker that we were talking about. Both types of the ransomware that we just talked about are aimed squarely at our digital lifestyle. They are designed to deny us access to something we want or need, and offer to be returned to us, which is rightfully ours in the first place, based on a payment of a ransom, right? Despite having similar objectives, the approaches taken by each of the ransomwares are quite different. Locker ransomware is designed to deny access to computer resources. The typical takes the form of locking the computer or device user interface and then asking the user to pay a fee in order to restore access to it. Locked computers will often be left with limited capabilities, such as only allowing the user to interact with ransomware and pay the ransom. This means access to the mouse might be disabled and or the keyboard. One of the things I did here, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and we were in a security discussion, and someone brought up that they've seen a new version of ransomware, computer locker ransomware, where it actually left open a chat window. So you could chat directly with the people that were holding your machine at ransom. So you can negotiate your terms to get your machine unlocked. I thought that was sophisticated, right? I mean, to me, I thought that was sophisticated, and that means it tells me as they say, as a white hat that tells me that we need to go forward and we need to be more advanced than them, and we need to keep pushing forward and keep trying to battle these off, because threats today are not simple. Threats today are sophisticated. Threats today are complicated. Threats today are highly thought out. We have to stay ahead of the curve. We have to have our layered type protections. We have to have our fast remediations. We have to have our correlation. We have to have prioritization. We have to have those type of things to be able to battle in today's world for what we're facing. Okay, so now let's talk about crypto ransomware, which is the data locker. This type of ransomware is designed to find and encrypt valuable data stored on the machine, on the computer, making that data useless unless the user obtains the decryption key. As people's lives become increasingly digital, they are storing more important data on their personal computers and devices. So we know that we're seeing ransomware out on mobiles now. We're seeing all connected devices, right? It's affecting not just the computers, it's affecting all devices, and so we're seeing that a lot. Many users are not aware of the need to create backups to guard against the hard disk failures or the loss of theft of the computer, let alone a possible crypto ransom attack. This could be because users don't have the know-how or don't realize the value of the data until it's lost. Setting up an effective backup process requires some work and discipline, so it's not an attractive proposition for the average user, but it's a great deterrent. So what I mean, it's not necessarily a deterrent. It's not a deterrent for the hacker to, get that threat on you. That's not where the deterrent is. The deterrent is actually on you to not have to pay that ransom because you have your information backed up properly. If your information is backed up properly and it's done correctly and it's done regularly, then you don't feel the urge or the need to pay a ransom to get that information back. So let's get back to talking about detection. As we've said before, analysts today need to examine many distinct consoles and often manually connect the dots to get a visibility into suspicious activity in their environments. Or they might need to export logs from various products into a SIM with a custom collector and complex rules in the effort to uncover the threat activities. In other words, we've got all these different products, security products, and they might be the same vendor, they might be multiple vendors, they might be 10 different vendors. And be able to bring all that information together is going to help battle this, fight this war. And it is a war. Fight this war that we're dealing with against the hackers, against the threats and stuff like that. It's really important to be able to see that information, to understand what that information is that you're gathering, and then tying that all together. Bottom line is this. Excuse me. A lot of endpoint technology is not being leveraged. We see it every day. A lot of good technology in there that helps stop what ransomware does. So there's some steps that you can do, and there's things that you can do to deal with it if you know that these things are happening. And there's some there's some proactive steps you can take to minimize the impact, and then there's some reactive steps that you can take to be able to remediate anything that is happening, such as blacklisting in sites. Some different things that you can go do right off the top. So that's one of the important things that you can do. So security response, semantics response. I call it security response because I deal 99% with semantic stuff. So semantics response. So this is kind of a high-level overview of kind of what we're talking about when we talk about when we start talking about ATP, and we got a demo coming up here in a little bit, and he'll show you actually some of the things that we're talking about. But if you look at this PowerPoint that's up here, we're talking about there's different levels or different things that are involved in here. So outside in the cloud, we've got email security.cloud plus advanced threat protection email. And then we've got the semantic global intelligence. Everybody knows about the GIN. It's been out there for a long time. Semantic Cynic, which is our detonation, and semantics Synapse. And we'll talk a little bit more further about both of those. Once you come inside the internal network, you can see you have the Semantic Advanced Threat Protection appliance. This can be a physical appliance. It can be a virtual appliance. They come three different ways. You have an 8840, which is like the entry-level box it comes in as an appliance, and then you have the 8880, which is more of a full-size enterprise box. It can be ran in three different ways, or it can be ran as combined. You can have the CIU on it, the console on it, and then you can have it as a scanner, or you can actually spread those out between different boxes. Advanced Threat Protection works directly with your SEPM and your database with your SEP manager. So it gives you the ability is it has a connector, and it connects either it's a SQL database or an embedded database, and it has a connector that go into the SEP manager. And what it does is it gives you the ability to use your existing agents that are already out there, your SEP agents that are already out there. It gives you the ability to use that so you don't have to go out and redeploy anything new, right? It's the whole point being is bringing the information of what you already have existing in your infrastructure, in your environment, and bringing that together into one central location. So what this does is it gives you the ability to uncover physical and virtual detonation from a sandbox cloud-based sandbox. It gives you ability to prioritize, correlate across endpoints, networks, and emails, and then it also gives you the ability to remediate, block, clean, and fix in real time. It's a cloud-based service. It sets out in the cloud. Symantec maintains that. It maintains that on virtuals, and it also maintains that on real physical hardware. A lot of threats out there are virtual aware. Ransomware is one of the main ones that's out there that is virtual aware. It knows it's on a virtual system. So when you try to get it to launch and stuff like that, a lot of times it won't do it. It's looking for that. So Symantec has set it up to give them the ability to go ahead and be able to draw out those VMware-aware malware, and then mimic the human interaction to get that threat to actually launch, and then see what that threat does, and then provide all the information to go ahead and remediate that threat. So Cynic is, like I said, is a cloud-based, meaning it is always up to date, it's scalable, and it's fast. Cynic also recognizes the most popular file types used in targeted attacks. Cynic will find things traditional defenses miss and can give you clean convictions in minutes. So this is on Synapse correlation. So let's talk about that. Today's products largely only collect traditional intelligence. We're talking about virus detected, malicious emails blocked, network connections blocked, that type of thing. They tend to ignore the rich intelligence needed to discover new attacks. Every network connection from every machine, every attempted login from each computer, detailed information about incoming emails, web pages, so on and so forth. You can even think of this as a personal slice of the Symantec MSS platform, because it really is. MSS like correlation between these three Symantec solutions and control points. So kind of how they're gathering everything else is like that. This is kind of what this is doing, that same type of thing. Traditional intelligence from a tool of yesterday would tell us that a network connection was blocked. Now we can see all the connections from every machine. We can also see who additionally has made calls out to that site, and then we can block. A virus detected turns into a file hash from the source, and it's applied to all these endpoints. And six people downloaded it today, so let's block at the network level to make sure a watering hole isn't embedded in a common website or users are visiting. So we'll give you an example of this on a website that Dennis and I found that was bringing back a command and control. And so we have that as an example for you today in the demo. So you'll be able to get more information on that. So ATP makes SEP better. So when you think about ATP, I want you to think about it as an enabler. I want you to think about it as a tool. It's something that we use with what you have to make things better, to bring information together, to give you faster, to uncover information, to prioritize information, and to remediate information. Seeing all those attacks in one place, as a security architect as myself, that is really nice when I can collect all that information and put it in one place and give me going and digging in and seeing if you have it, and if you do have it, then remove it from all those endpoints at one time. So you get that ability, contain and remediate complex attacks in minutes, and I think minutes is a little bit long. I think it's probably actually seconds. With instant
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. If you do have any questions as we go through, please feel free to drop them in the chat window, and we'll get to those once we're done here. So, just kind of as John was talking about there, ATP and what it does here. So we'll kind of take a look at the ATP server. So what we're looking at here is just kind of the opening dashboard. Once I log in, I can go ahead and see the correlation, right? The correlation of my network traffic, as well as my endpoint traffic, as well as my email traffic. So as we talk about this, and what is the importance, right? The objective today is to kind of talk about ransomware. So as we talk about ransomware, what's the most common vector that we're seeing ransomware coming in? Well, right now, the most common vector we're seeing is an email. We're seeing it coming in as an invoice.doc. In that doc, it's dropping a downloader. Once that downloader makes that call home, that's where that ransomware is coming into play. So you can kind of see here, based on the days, I can look and see, how many threats I've had each day in network, endpoint, and email. That kind of gives me that information there on the dashboard. I can also click through and I can see my incident manager. I can see this as incidents over time. So I can look at a 7-day window. I can look at the all window from the day that the ATP server was put into place. So in this point in time, this is a physical server that we're testing here in a lab. So you can see here we've got some threats we've been dropping on this. I can also go into policies. So in policies here, kind of as John was talking about, this is gmail.com. So if a user tries to go to gmail.com, they forget to put the L, fat finger, miss that letter, this drops a command and control. So in our testing here, we've actually added it to the blacklist here. And you can see here I can manually add or manually remove information to the blacklist and whitelist. Now, as we're talking about how this correlates and goes to using my current semantic investment, what you're going to see is that with a blacklist and whitelist, this information gets pushed to my SEP manager, and it's going to be added to the system lockdown feature within the SEP manager. And that's where I can go ahead and manage my blacklist and whitelist for my clients. So once it's in system lockdown, then I can add it to application device control if I wanted to create some blocks there. So from the policies here, we'll just kind of to move into settings here. This is kind of where you can see the global. Just kind of gives me an idea of everything here. Connects to my SEPM. If my SEPM is connected to an embedded database locally, there is a log collector tool that I can use to make that connection a little easier. I can also connect it to multiple SEPMs if I have multiple SEPMs. Keep my backups, my SSL, my licensing, and then my SMTP server for emails and sending notifications out to administrators. And also see just some of the appliance information, just kind of some general settings. So here this is an all-in-one server at this point, meaning that it is the control point. It's connected to the network via a SPAN port, as well as connected to an email.cloud server, and then also our endpoint protection manager. And then also in settings, I can create accounts. So there's different accounts that I can set up here. You can see we've created different accounts. If I set up an account here, I've got different roles that I can choose. So I can have an admin, a controller, or a user, depending on the level and what I want them to be able to see or do within the management server. What you also see right now is that these are local accounts, so similar to how SEP has local accounts in the management server. And this currently doesn't connect to Active Directory. That is in the roadmap and will be added down the road, but currently today, I am stuck with a local account. So from there, I can go into events, and this also kind of similar to Incident Manager, right? It gives me events over time. But here I can do some searching. So you can see here I've got some different filters that I can go through. If I want to see something for just endpoints, I can search for endpoints just by removing the others. And this automatically switches down below. So it does switch on the fly. I don't have to change anything else. So if I remove endpoints, I can go network. You can see right away it gives me stuff down below. Same with email. So when I add all three, I can change my date, time, all this basic reporting. Because there is no built-in reports or scheduled reports that I can set. This is the reporting today in this product. So it is kind of limited from that standpoint, but it does connect to the database. It does have its own database, so this information is stored, so you can access it for a period of time. And then the last tab here is kind of the action manager, and this kind of shows me when actions were taken, what was taken, and what I want to do there. So what I'm going to do is kind of go back to the dashboard here, and I want to kind of talk about this. So we'll kind of talk through this here. So when we're talking about events, right, I can go to a specific day, and when I click on that day, it's going to tell me everything that's happened on this day. So I know that this machine has downloaded a threat. Looks like multiple threats. So I can see the machine. I can see what threats, what's happened. Looks like we've got a few fake tech support scams going on there. So probably visiting some sites that they shouldn't be. I can also isolate the machine. So when I isolate the machine here, what it does is it sends a command to the Endpoint Protection Manager. What that will do is then within the Endpoint Protection Manager, I use host integrity to create a specific location. And within that location, I can use the default semantic quarantine firewall policy, and that firewall policy then limits what my communication is. So when I isolate this machine, it then moves it as a failed host integrity check, puts it into that location with the quarantine firewall policy, and then that firewall policy only allows that client to communicate to the Endpoint Protection Manager and to Symantec to get definitions. So the communication is limited. I've isolated the machine. I can then deal with the threat as I need to, and then simply go back to the Action Manager, and from there I can click on the machine and I can tell it to rejoin. So some different things that I can do there around that. So if I go more into it, again, I can see the different threats. I can also, as SEP admins, right, today it's difficult to search for a threat and see how many machines it's on. Well, here it's simple. So I can simply just, click on the threat. I can go in to here, and it will tell me all of the different machines that was infected on. When it was affected, so I get date, time, I get how many machines. I see here I got 36 total that are infected with this Trojan gen detection. Also gives me, endpoint name, IP, as well as what the OS is. So I can get all of that there. I can also go into Incident Manager, and then in Incident Manager I can, again, choose the day and time if there's incidences, see what they are. And I'll see them down below here. So I can see this command and control. And so it then will show me the different machines, right, that have gone to there. So if I choose, show malicious files on this machine, it will show me that, it's had a couple malicious files. And so I can see those there. So this kind of, if you have multiple machines going there, again, I can rejoin it, isolate the machine here. I can also delete the file if it hasn't been removed from the Symantec side. I can also here add to whitelist and blacklist. So similar to what we saw earlier where I can manually add them, I can also just simply click here and it will add or add to that whitelist or blacklist. So it kind of gives me some information there as far as what's going on for the different incidences, and I can see multiple attacks, what's going on and what I need to see there. Okay, so that kind of takes us through ATP. So in general, kind of like what John was talking about there, ATP is a tool. It's an enablement tool. It gives us the ability to correlate and prioritize the information. As a SEP admin, dealing with SEP for years, right? It's always difficult to go and see a threat and then have to go digging through your logs or go digging through your SIM if you're offloading logs, so look at raw logs to find out, not only where is the threat, how did it get there, but how many machines in my environment are affected with that, right? I can use risk tracer, different things like that within SEP, but still it's a long process. So what ATP gives you today is it gives you that one central location, a few clicks to be able to go through, see what information is there, what needs to be correlated, how many machines are infected, what machines, and then I can isolate those machines to have my help desk or my tier 2 or whatever be able to go out and take a look at those machines and get that information done. So it's just kind of a little bit about ATP and what I can do there. Again, I can look at events over time. The events over time gives me everything there. And again, here I can see, what the threat is, where it is. You also see here a couple options that John talked about here is being able to submit to Cynic. That is the SAM-based testing that Symantec does there. So that this testing at Cynic is done via virtual and also via physical bare bone machines. So you get that test there to make sure that if something is virtual, where they are getting that testing. I can also submit to VirusTotal. If anyone's familiar with VirusTotal, VirusTotal is a website that I can submit threats to, and I can go see what all of the AV vendors are listing as a threat, or what they're listing it as, or what they're calling it, and see what's going on there. Again, file details, relationships, additional information. I can get that all from VirusTotal there. I can also delete the file or copy the file to a local file store. So, anyone out there that wants to really try to keep threats around, you can definitely copy those to the file store and build your own threat database. So that kind of gives us some information there on events, and you can see here it will give me events over time and what's gone on there. So I can see all of the different events, different files, what's going on. I can go to a specific computer and isolate. I can see what's happened with that related incidences or related events, and what's happening with that machine. So maybe I have a user that's downloading too many torrents or different things that they shouldn't be doing depending on what they have access to on their machines. So as we know, there's a lot of companies and a lot of users today, right, that need to have admin rights to have the correct user interaction and make sure that we're not interfering with their day-to-day work there. So just kind of an overview at this point. Again, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat box and we'll get to them. Otherwise, John, I'm going to hand this back to you and we can put the PowerPoint back up and continue on here.
Okay. I will show my screen again and let me go ahead and take that over and get back down to the screen where I want to be. Hold on one second. Technical issues from end. I apologize for everybody where my mic was cutting out a little bit here and there. I'm not sure why that's happening. Hopefully everybody can hear me fine now. Like I said, I'm not sure what was happening out at the end there. All right, so we talked about the ATP readiness, the big section that we want to talk about. So some of the things I wanted to bring up right at the end is some things that you can do that you can do proactively instead of reactively, right? You can. These are things that not only you can do, but your users can do too. Back up your system regular. The 3-2-1 theory, right? You want to back up your systems on a very good basis. In other words, any mission critical system files, you want to, of course, make sure that they're not even, maybe they're stored on a USB or an external drive, and that's encrypted, or, they're protected other ways rather than have them on the machine as the only place. So making sure those systems are backed up, or those files or folders are backed up. Visiting your favorite sites via bookmarks, not links and emails. So if someone sends a link and email left off or something like that, just a phishing site or a CNC site or that type of thing, or possibly a site to download that's been compromised. We've even seen it where known good sites have been compromised where this has happened. So we want to make sure that you're visiting sites that that are good, and then making sure you have the level of protection in the background, or the layers of protection in the background. Verify all your email sources. If you get something sent from somebody, just don't open it up. Verify your email sources and making sure it's something that you want to. Control your admin privileges with users. Limited. We see this a lot out there, is limiting your users' rights and capabilities, your admin privileges within the environment. Where maybe to the point being is they can't even get to the point where they're able to install software. We've seen a lot of environments moving that way, where they're not allowing their users to install software any longer. That it has to be installed either by Alteris or by some kind of a big fix or something like that is actually deploying the software out there and maintaining that software, the patches for them. So keep those things in mind when we're talking about that. Stop paying the ransom. Okay, so we all know about the hospital about 2-3 weeks ago down in California that paid the ransom because they had mission critical information, because they weren't proactive and they didn't back it up, those type of things. But they paid the ransom. The problem is that now we're funding them, right? Now we're funding the hackers that are doing this, that are building. We're adding them, giving them more financial power to go forward, more incentive to go forward. So we need to be proactive. We need to make sure we have our layers of protection in there. We need to make sure that we're getting that information correlated into a central location, and we need to make sure that we're able to see that information and then remediate that information. It's important. The average time, this came up, and Dennis and I were talking about this about 3 weeks ago, and the average time to remediation of a threat in an environment is like 60 days. So if you think about that for a second, 60 days in an environment, a threat, where did it go? What did it do? How did it do that? What did it do when it was there? So, I mean, all those things. So bringing that information to the forefront, prioritizing that information, and getting that information to the forefront will limit the exposure that your environment actually has or sees.
John, so that's a great point right there. Just because we're talking about, the 60 days, right? We also know that it takes, at least most threats are usually in the environment up to 2 weeks before they're even determined, right? Especially with these. So as we talk about these threats and we talk about, readiness, let's touch on that a little bit, because I feel like we're kind of maybe missing a little bit here. So as we talk about readiness, I mean, you talked about the layered support, right? And the different layers of SEP. One number that was thrown at me not too long ago was that 64% of all threats today are detected by semantic features that are outside of the normal definition. 64%. That's a huge number.
So you're saying outside of the normal ABAS, antivirus, anti-spyware signature definition sets.
Correct. Yeah, which used to be the way that we would detect threats, right? So as we would detect threats with the ABAS definitions, because of the morphing and the modifications that threats have done today, right? And the way they're trying to get around those definitions. These added features, with Insight and Sonar and the firewall component and IPS and all those different features that we know need to be used that aren't. Those are kind of part of that readiness, right? Making sure that you've got all that in place as well to better help protect your environments.
Another thing I'd like to add to that is, and this is a little bit of the roadmap stuff, but, and Semantic's probably best to talk about their own roadmap, but there's a couple things that I know that are coming down the line. Dennis mentioned one of them where, Active Directory AD is going to be integrated into the ATP, so it won't be, console-based type of security or type authentication. And then there was also some additional stuff is that we look at the different connectors that are out there. As of right now, Splunk is a connector that currently works with ATP that has a connector already built for that, which is a third-party connector. So that is already working. Symantec is working forward to understand that everybody has different software, different vendors out there, and they are aggressively building connectors for their ATP appliance to help the end users and help the customers excuse me, to bring that together, to bring all that information together, no matter what software you're using out there. So it is advancing in that way. That is the way that it's going. A couple of additional roadmap things that are going on is right now it's in a span tap mode only to connect into your network. That will be moving to an inline, and that will also give you your SSL deep packet inspection that everyone will be looking for. That we saw in other appliances from Symantec, such as the Symantec Web Gateway. So you will have that ability that is coming down the pipe. Needs a few additional features being added to it, so they are bringing those in. Symantec is working in the agile type format. So Dennis, I just want to confirm that you can still hear me.
Yeah, you're cutting in and out though.
Yeah. Just a couple other points. Sorry, I have a bad mic. I'm trying to talk around it, but a couple of the things that they're doing is they're kind of bringing this stuff forward, and they're making it like I said, making it all work together, and that's what's really important. Another last thing that I want to talk about is the reporting functionality. Reporting is currently not in the ATP product. Reporting is coming in this next build, which is due out in April. So we will see reporting in there, so you'll be able to get your daily, weekly, monthly type reports from it. And Dennis, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next screen, but I'm going to have you take over the voice. For some reason, my headset's not working very well.
All right, so just kind of following up here with the readiness, right? The ATP endpoint, as John said, it is a huge value with email network as well as the endpoint clients. There is nothing new to install, so it's not like I'm having to add anything else to my client machines, which is a great, and then again, like we said, a chance to deploy advanced features. As we look at it, there's a couple different ways to look at it, right? I can be reactive. I can just kind of set my antivirus program in place and kind of let it go, which we see a lot. Or I can add the advanced features, and I can be a little more proactive, making sure that I'm looking at logs, getting notifications, making sure I'm staying on top of things there. From the SEP client side, it will work with the clients that are on 12.1.5 and newer, but there is some communication functionality that Symantec has added in 12.1.6 MP3. And part of that communication feature does allow the ATP server to communicate directly to the clients, which eliminates some of the slowdown of the heartbeat and all of that. So some good added features there. Go ahead. Go to the next. So a little bit about us at ITS. We go way back with SEP and SWG. Just between John and myself, we go back 15 plus years with Symantec and endpoint protection. We've been a part of the alpha and beta of the ATP participation program. We've been running it in labs within our own segregated environment there. All modules of ATP. We are running it also a hardware server, physical server in production to monitor and see what's going on there, which has been eye-opening for us to see that not only large companies but little companies like ourselves of 80 to 100 employees also gets attacked with threats as well as ransomware and other things. We are able to assist and give guidance and implementation of Symantec products, including SEP and ATP, We also do other products as well as DLP and any encryption products. We do have managed services for SEP and ATP. So if you're looking to offload or maybe don't have the time or the ability, the people, we can provide that to you as well. So at this point, any questions? I haven't seen anything in the chat. I don't know if John has.
So let me see. I've got a couple additional things. There's a current ransomware that seems to be trending. Ransomware in general, I don't know. I wouldn't say, because since there's only like 2 categories that we are right now putting ransomware in, like we were talking about previously, they're both trending. I mean, we see a lot. It's all for profit or political purposes, right? I mean, we're seeing that as the general trend, and that's been the general trend pretty consistently for the last 6 years. Ransomware is a new variant of that, using encryption in some cases where it's encrypting those files, and in some other cases it's just locking down the machine and not allowing you to give you access or limited access to certain things. So I'm seeing abundance of them. The biggest thing that I'm seeing right now is ransomware outright, where people are saying, like the KE Ranger is a new one for Mac. I just got a report from another customer, not a customer of ours, but a potential customer that has a ransomware outbreak. And that's when we talk about being proactive, and that's when we talk about what do we set our settings for? What do we go? I mean, it's all the way down to what do we allow to enter our environment? Where do we put those restrictions? Do we become more restrictive to protect our environment and then write exceptions to that based off what our customer need is, right? Or our user need? And I swing personally as a security architect, and I know Dennis does too, is we swing to be more secure and make those exceptions where we need them. Not to be less secure at the beginning and then have to deal with the threats. So I take all that in my mind, and that's kind of how I look at things of what we should do. So we need to be more proactive. We need to tighten down what we can do and how we do things and how we deal with things, and then write the exceptions off of that. So to answer your question, there's 2 main versions of ransomware, and they're both pretty much running wild right now.
So, John, I would just add to that as we are looking at it, a lot of what I have been seeing lately is the threat called Locky. And Locky is part of the crypto ransomware family, and that's been very large lately. I kind of touched on it earlier, showing up as an invoice.doc file. What you get then is a downloader that makes the call back out home. Right. And then brings in Locky at that point. That's probably the larger one I've been seeing lately.
Yeah, and then Locky and certain ransomware sites, they make those callbacks. And when they make those callbacks, if we proactively know what sites that they call back to, and if we follow up on those things on semantic security response site, if we follow up on that, we can blacklist those sites for everybody, right? So that callback can't happen. So there's some different things that we can do. Those are ever changing, so we have to constantly adjust and we have to be proactive on it, but those are things that we can, some of the things that we can do. So if I see another question, is best practice for known infected machines with ransomware? With ransomware on top of it, the best thing is like what we just talked about with ATP, and you can do this with SEP too. If you have SEP in your environment, you can put it in a firewall quarantine folder or group. You can lock it down, and then you can run Power Eraser, semantic Power Eraser on the machine and see if it will clean up the threat with the latest definition sets on that. Another way that you can possibly do it is if you can boot the box, you can go in with Safe Boot, and you can go in, and which brings up a bootloader, and you can go ahead and you can run it clean without any processes. That's going to be your best reactive way of dealing with that. And then once you've confirmed that it's clean, then you can go ahead and rejoin it back into the environment. Proactively, again, like we talked about, is back your mission critical files and the necessary files that you have, back those up to a external device, cloud storage, back that up to whatever is necessary to help prevent. So if your machine does get locked down, or if you are locked out of your machine, then it's not so mission critical that you have to pay the ransom, which is the last thing that we would like to see you do. Will blocking exe on app data and local app data folders eliminate ransomware? Blocking, yeah, there's it's not blocking those files necessarily, but it's blocking who can access those files and what level of access they have those files, and do they have the access to execute those files. So yeah, there is actually a write-up that I will send to I'll send to Stephanie to get out to you. It's written up from a friend of mine at Symantec, Matt Sherman, that actually will deal with some of this stuff and will actually give you some settings and some information that will help you proactively protect your environment. So I'll make sure I get that to Stephanie here in the next hour or so, and then she can provide that or help provide that to the people that are on the call. Best practice for known infected machines with ransomware. We just kind of talked about that. The best practices, I'll send you that information. That's all kind of grouped into that same email, and I'll make sure that you get that. It says, you mentioned controlling admin's privileges on the endpoints. Will it help? As most do, ransomware don't require admin privileges. So will it help? Yes. It helps at what level can you do certain things? What are the rights that they have? So can it help? Can it eliminate? No. You're right about that, because there is a lot of new threats out there that don't actually look or even care what your rights are on that box. They have the ability to elevate your privileges or stuff like that. So you run into stuff like that, but keep in mind, it's going to help. It's not going to alleviate or eliminate it, but it will help. VMware malware, does that mean that it actually slips through VM and infects the host? I look at this, VMware malware knows that all it does is it's aware. It knows that it's running on VMware. So it knows it's running in a virtual. So what it does is it can hide itself, and it makes it harder for us to detect everything that it does, because it's harder for us to mimic its actions, and sometimes it just hibernates. It knows that it's on a virtual, and then if it's on a virtual, then it knows that virtual can be just reimaged. So it does that. So what they do with Cynic is they have the capability of putting that on hardware, true hardware, and then being able to mimic everything that it does, and then be able to detect what it does, and then be able to clean it up and remove it from the machine. Let's see, another question: is it possible to detect and remove before it starts working? Is semantic set possible to detect and remove before it starts working? There's a lot of functionality in the other document that I talked about from Matt Sherman. I'm going to lead back again to that, because there's a nice little section that talks about Download Insight. Download Insight is one of the best things that you can do is you can prevent. So the different things to prevent is don't click on emails that you don't supposed to do, all these additional things. But if someone does like try to download something, go to a website and click on something and it downloads something, if it's an unproven file, if it doesn't have the reputation that it needs, that type of thing, there's some different stricter constraints that you can put in your environment that will prevent your users from doing that, and that's definitely within SEP. So yeah, there's some stuff you can do, and then like I said, we'll make sure that I get that to Stephanie, and then we get that out to everybody that's on the call. And the last question that I see here is, IPS the most powerful SEP feature to fight ransomware? IPS and Download Insight. I think those are probably my two most important features that I would say, but it's all protection. So if you think about it, even Dennis said that 68% of the new threats that are coming in are not hitting on AVAS signature base. That's right. He's actually right. I mean, we even heard Symantec say about a year ago that AVAS is not enough anymore. We know that. It's layered type security that you're going to have. If you have proper layer type security, you're using your AVAS. You're keeping it updated to the most current definition sets. You're using Download Insight to protect you against reputation stuff. Files don't have the reputation, you don't get them, right? You block them, you quarantine them, or you delete them. Then you've got sonar, which is based off behavior. If a file is acting a certain way that sonar determines that it doesn't need to act that way or shouldn't act that way, then sonar gets involved at that. And then you have IPS, which is great for intrusion, right? It's not allowing those attacks to happen, or it's stopping those attacks or timing out those attacks. Then you've got firewall. Firewall is great for your TCP and UDP traffic that you want to block certain ports and you want to not allow that certain traffic or maybe even some call-out traffic to happen or callback traffic happen. And the last piece is, which is ties with ATP into the SEP console, is host integrity. So host integrity, that you can put restrictions in there and certain things that you want to do and things that you want to allow your machine to do, or they have to be at a certain level to even be in your environment. Remember, it's all about the weakest link. It's all about the link that's out there. Whoever, they're going to find the machine that's vulnerable. They're going to find the machine that is not fully protected. They're going to find those, and those are the ones that we've got to proactively make sure that we have them protected properly. Okay, a new question came in, and it says, is there a way to know if there is an encryption going on an endpoint before users get the message? As you mentioned, it can be a system 2 weeks before triggering. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. Dennis, I'm not sure if you know more on that, because you know more on the encryption side. I'm not sure if there's a way to determine whether a machine is being encrypted before you actually get the notice, so you're able to kind of stop that.
I mean, when the downloader comes in, we've been seeing the downloader being detected a lot lately, a lot more than it has been in the past.
A lot of reputation stuff, yep.
Correct, which is great. But then if it's not detected, right, which is what we're saying, and it makes the call back home, at that point, then once the crypto or the locker thread is on there and starts to make that, I believe there's something that shows up in the taskbar that it's going on, but I haven't seen the newer variants, the last few that have been out, to know for sure if those have changed at all. So, I'm going to say that I'm not completely sure on that.
Yeah, so that might be one that we'll take away and kind of take a look and see. I mean, every variant of ransomware or crypto locker or locky or the different variants, some are going to act a certain way, some are not going to act the same way, some are going to kick something off in the task manager, some won't. Some are going to hide themselves and we won't be able to see those things. And that's why so much is proactive layered protection is going to be the best way to do to protect your environment. And then, of course, ATP to help you correlate that information, prioritize that information, and remediate and recover from any incidences. So at this time, this is probably the end of our presentation. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. Again, I apologize for the mic issues. If you have any additional questions or comments or concerns, if you could, is go ahead and you can let us know what those are. Let me bring up that screen so you guys can see. And these are the ways that you can contact us and reach out to us. So if you do have additional questions, if you want to have a demo or possibly do a POC of ATP, maybe even have some deeper discussions on, what you can do and how you can be proactive in your environment, and maybe some additional assistance on how to do some of the settings and stuff like that. These are our contact ways that you can reach us. We're out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. And there's our main line, and then, of course, all additional website, email, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We do post up on these sites regular, so please go take a look at them and then come back and keep us as a favorite. So back into the proactive way of doing things, but keep us as a favorite. Come back and take a look at what our presentations are and what additional, and then also any comment, plus or negative. Let us know what you got out of it, what you didn't get out of it, something that we can make better for you guys. Again, thank you for everybody for coming, and at this time, that would be the end of our presentation.